Hi guys, weekly market outlook. Next week is going to be an exciting one. Why? Because we got the ECB, European Central Bank, with their interest rate decision. Is the euro going to face further pressure ahead? Is the euro going to fall somehow? There are some hints in the charts we could potentially look for. We saw oil prices rejected by the 50 moving average. Is oil basically again going to weaken somehow further? And we got a lot of other data from Canada, from the US, and obviously charting patterns in the dollar against the Japanese yen, causing the Japanese yen to potentially weaken further, as we will examine in the next couple of minutes. So with that one, great to have you guys back, and let's check out charts, what goes here in the next couple of trading days moving forward. News-wise, we'll start with data from Canada. The Canadian dollar was actually in a mixed bag in recent trading weeks. Oil prices again came under pressure somewhat, so let's examine the Canadian dollar here right now. EuroCAD gearing up momentum. The technical resistance pattern, the technical resistance zone might basically be broken again. That's the pin bar candlestick we can see here. And if that one is going to be broken, the upside might actually continue. Maybe all the way here towards higher levels. If we look at trend lines here, that next resistance zone, which would roughly be the 158 area moving forward. Obviously beforehand, there would be further minor resistance zones here, 153, and that area might be interesting. But again, it depends on future strength for the euro, if the ECB is going to lower interest rates on Thursday. That's going to happen. This might be of particularly different impact here in the euro against the Canadian dollar. Looking at the CAD, we have as well the dollar, the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. Holy moly, this market has just rocketed to the upside. In the weekly charting pattern here, we say, and we said earlier on, hey, this zone might be broken to the upside, and we were proven gold right. The market was broken here and basically kind of now is trading at the next resistance area. Since the volatility is clearly quite high, we can see maybe the market might indicate a further push to the upside, and with that obviously a further breakout to higher levels as upside full momentum here potentially confirms. That's at least for the CAD data. Data wise, we shall see. There's no expectation, no difference in the expectation to be seen. Currently CPI data 2.3, so there's not much of a hint we can get here, and we shall look for the data on Tuesday next week and watch out for potential further impacts here, or a potential impact in figures. From the UK, Great Britain, I've just been there basically last week. We got further data. Consumer prices hitting the road on Wednesday, where consumer prices Wednesday morning are expected to fall somehow further. And you can feel it in the UK. Prices are coming slightly lower. The economic development might call for a further interesting interest rate decision moving forward. But let's cut this one short and talk about the pound and the CPI figures. If it weakens, obviously the pound could give some way to the downside, and that's currently what's happening. We're here at the daily chart. The market had fallen somehow further to even below the 50 moving average, and the 50 moving average is kind of bending to the downside at the moment. If we're looking at it from a different angle, we could also say, hey, maybe this 50 moving average might actually weaken again, indicating a further bearish trend. We are close by, let me remove this, we are close by those areas, we are close by this zone, which basically kind of tells us resistance on the left, support here, support there. If the support lasts, the market might break higher and could regain momentum. If the support here, or say basically that support zone, if it falls, the downside seems to be quite potentially positive, because the dollar index is also obviously telling us some other side of the story here, that the greenback, the US dollar, might actually strengthen somehow further. The dollar index obviously breaking to the upside. The 50 moving average, it's 103.20 is around the corner here, and that might tell us that the upside might continue if the market breaks this zone with potential positivity here ahead of us. Dollar index strengthening, potentially calling for euro US dollar weakness, pound US dollar weakness. Let's examine the Aussie, because the Australian dollar is obviously giving us an insight as well for equities, for stock markets, rising price momentum in the equity sector, S&P creating or having created a new high point, quite crucial. This market currently is quite interesting as we are really on top at the 50 moving average. If the zone lasts, the upside might continue. Seems to be the likelihood, to be honest, because why is the euro and why is the pound falling, but why obviously the Australian dollar offering upside momentum? Well, because potentially the markets are still in favor of positivity here. And that's indicated by the Aussie US dollar currency pair. Basically as well, by the way, and that seems to be the recent cause of falling prices basically this week, we have to say. We had the turnaround, negative candlestick pattern here, and now the market is about to strengthen based on this zone, rejected by lower prices, daily chart wise, maybe turnaround. So we could be at pretty much this perfect setup here, where we are just seeing some turnaround here, similar story here, and obviously next week upside momentum. Despite a strengthening US dollar. If the greenback basically strengthens, this doesn't need to mean that also the Aussie is basically weakening due to the dollar strength. So it could mean that upside momentum here in this pair might continue, with that obviously the upside being kind of quite interesting. By the way, New Zealand dollar is quite interesting as well here, because the Kiwi seemingly following up with a similar pattern. 50 moving average was tested this week. The market kind of started to break higher again. And with that, we could see, and we talk exactly this area here, we could see upside momentum to continue. And basically, even on shorter term charts, the breakout which was currently happening might confirm that positivity could be the key takeaway here, and upside momentum basically going to continue. That's for Wednesday. Then Thursday, we got the figures, which in Australia could be of particular boost for the Australian dollar. Employment change being quite interesting, not a major release, but it is a release, especially if the actual figure deviates quite far from what we've expected. Unemployment rate not expected to change, but yeah, if there is going to be a change visible, this could, and if it might even fall potentially, could offer the Aussie some boost to higher price levels. So there we go. We got some figures potentially not giving us a lot of insights, but some which could lead to a potential move in this market quite far. Last but not least, and that's 2:15 for all the Central European guys on Thursday, the interest rate decision. Now, will we see that ECB-wise Christine Lagarde is going to slash rates somehow further? I might say quite likely. We got the issues in the Eurozone in general. We got the big economic locomotive, which is actually not driving far, has not been driving far from the train station. We're talking Germany. The economic activity seems to be quite limited. We see PMI data not really very positive. We see the economic sentiment. We see kind of companies closing down. Ryanair has basically stated that they close a majority of their offices. Germany being not a big hub for Ryanair any further. Is this going to be positive for the economic outlook? Not at all. The sentiment in general is kind of weakening, and the eco-friendly political decisions which are being implemented seem to harm rather than doing any good. So ECB, euro under pressure, that's the key takeaway. But let's observe another currency pair which could be kind of quite interesting, and that is the euro against the Japanese yen. The Japanese yen had weakened a fair bit again in the recent couple of trading days. Now, this week, the Euro-Japi was not doing anything much. after a strong push to higher levels last week. That's exactly the candlestick I'm chalking here. Not quite a perfect pin here, but the upside was happening. This week we were quiet, but we are close by this breakout zone, and this might call for further positivity here. And that obviously translates that the Japanese yen's weakness might be kind of quite interesting. Though the question, if the Eurozone or if Christine Lagarde is slashing rates, lowering rates, is this beneficial for the euro against the Japanese yen? Obviously not. Let's talk carry trade briefly. Euro interest rate 3.4%, Japanese yen interest rate, whatever, 0.1, 0.2% in the near future, right? So the differential, interest rate differential is actually falling somehow, rather since the Eurozone's rates are being lowered. That might actually be a narrative here. However, it might be that Christine Lagarde's words could be of impact, calling for some upside momentum in the euro against the Japanese yen. So it might be quite interesting to observe. That's anyways just one currency pair which could be interesting here. Looking at it from this perspective, that's the euro US dollar currency pair. We are on top of a strong support area, and that might indicate as well that the upside is going to follow, and upside momentum in this case might basically continue to call for positivity here, which is obviously can be quite beneficial for the euro against the US dollar. What else do we have? We had the weekly chart here in the silver market, which is quite remarkable, pushing this momentum to the upside here. And upside momentum in this case is going to kind of basically push this market towards way higher levels. There's just the neighbor slashing the picture right now behind us. It doesn't matter because we talk about silver. Soon reading towards the gold market here. The silver market is basically continuing to the upside here, leading the game to way higher levels, and silver's support zone had basically supportively kind of called for upside momentum. In this case, the monthly chart looking positive. The weekly chart, the daily charts, they all basically call for upside momentum, and that's simply what is kind of quite interesting in regards to the silver upside mood we see here right now. And last but not least, fellow traders, the gold price, this is just rocking the show. We are nearing the strong resistance area 2680, 2683. If this zone basically kind of calls for further potential, or if the zone is being broken, then basically gold's current price rising sentiment might continue despite, and that's the question, despite the strong US dollar, gold was able to rise, and this is potentially going to continue. One thing I forgot, since I mentioned it at the beginning here, and that's the oil price. Oil markets have kind of started to rise again. So weekly chart wise, the market is trading below this 50 moving average, and it was acting with or at this zone with a strong basic pin bar candlestick pattern, potentially calling for further weakness, which is why we said maybe we see another rejection here. Economic sentiment, and that's, if I'm correct, just not supporting oil prices to rise further. If economic demand remains limited, if geopolitical tensions in the Middle East remain limited, oil prices might cause for further falling potential. And with that, obviously, we might see that the US oil price here in our platform is going to potentially weaken somehow further. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, folks, fellow traders, and anyone else whom I've not mentioned here right now. It's going to be an exciting week. ECB is going to be interesting, likely the biggest news event for the upcoming week. Crypto markets remain rather on the sidelines in a way. Bitcoin kind of a bit falling, Ether a little bit falling, not too much to be seen when looking at it from this perspective, eyeing the charts at least currently. However, the positive trend in Bitcoin and Ether has also been resumed. So basically, we might see that the market kind of is able to follow equities. So we shall see. Happy trading. Talk to you soon. Have a good one. See you then. Bye-bye.